Hello, my name is Jan Kubań. I am the president of Polish-American Foundation of Education and Economical Research, and I have pleasure and honor to talk to Alejandro Chafuen. You are the member of Program Council of our foundation, also managing director of Acton Institute, and former president of Atlas Network. Are you still cooperating with Atlas?
Well, first it's a pleasure to be in Pafery and here in Warsaw. I regard my work in Poland, as a great privilege. I am managing director of Acton Institute, which I was one of the founding trustees in 1990. I left Atlas at the end of 2017. I think now the major threat to the free society is coming from the cultural side. People who want to cancel those of us who have Judeo-Christian views, who have, I think, the right view about the human person, about the family, proven values that have led to the flourishing of society. And then in my previous organization, like other libertarian groups, they are catering to the politically correct. After I left, Atlas started a rainbow fund to give a privilege, especially in Latin America, to the LGBT plus, despite the billions of dollars that got from governments, corporations to promote that. So I think that is not helpful. It divides the anti-socialist camp. But again, let's speak about the positive thing. Acton is one of the best institutes in the world. We work for a free and virtuous society grounded in Judeo-Christian principles and the best social science. We stayed out of politics. We have the biggest network in the world, because we're in 140 countries. It's called Poverty Cure Network. We prefer private solutions to poverty. So again, it's a privilege to work for Acton and to be associated with Pafery.
Okay, now we are focusing on Acton, and not Atlas. So we are here in Warsaw. You are the member of the conference. You will be speak on this conference. Conference which is devoted to creation of the new university called Intermarium. Devoted to the change of social ideologies and influence of ideology on social issues and so on and so on. So generally speaking, that this new university is planned to fight against generally on the leftist ideologies.
I don't think that. I think the goal really is to create an area for scholars who seek truth can work. Some of my friend economists say they're going to be biased towards rule of law because many of them are lawyers. But that's all right. When St. John Paul II had to answer the question if it is capitalism the right model, he said, look, if by capitalism we mean a system of private property within a rule of law that respects the dignity of the human person, yes, capitalism is the most consistent, but he's better call it the free economy or free enterprise. And I agree completely with St. John Paul. But in 2/3 of the world, Jan, there's no rule of law. Look at the indices of the World Justice Project or Transparent International. So a big part of what takes place in the world is not the result of free market or neoliberalism, it's neostatism.
Neostatism, yes.
Today, since we keep measurements, there's an organization, OECD, that gathers almost 40 of the top economists in the world. We never had such high levels of taxation in relation to GDP.
Yeah.
And a taxation is what? It's a restriction on private property. And private property with the family are the two basic institutions of the free society. So I'm glad that they're inviting economists like me who understand the importance of rule of law, but understand that the goals of political freedom, of religious freedom, of flourishing of the family cannot be achieved if you go against the laws of economics, which for me are laws of the natural order, private property, stable money, the right to exchange your private property with non-criminal actors, because today we're dealing with actors like China, where any big actor in China has to yield and obey the Communist Party of China. So again, it's a complicated world, but I think I'm glad that we're going to have another university to fight against the scourge. I'm a member, a trustee, a member of the board of directors of one of these universities, founded in 1876 in Pennsylvania. It's called Grove City College. We have a think tank called Institute for Faith and Freedom, headed by a Roman Catholic, Paul Kenger. And I believe, hopefully, we're going to be like sisters universities, and we will have exchange with the Intermarium College.
Why do you think that private property is so important for the free society?
Well, since the fall, since human beings became sinners, it's natural that we take much better care of what's our own. We enter into less dispute. We are more peaceful when we know where our border ends of our property, and instead of that when we have confusion. And this happens for everyone, you know. Also, private property is the only way you can truly be charitable, you know, to practicing, you know, the Christian virtues of clothing the naked, giving housing to the homeless, you know, giving food to the hungry. It has to be with mine, not with taking from others and doing. So not only private property makes it more productive, it allows for spirituality. Each human right, well, private property is a human right by religious liberty. If you don't own your church, you know, if you don't own the printing presses where you can publish what the church thinks, you don't have freedom of religion. But basically, you can go even back. The first institution of society, human beings began to gather with the family. They felt closer to their spouses, to the children, to their offspring, and private property was the only way to maintain the family united. And so that's why I always say that private property and the family are the two basic institutions of the free society. And I say, if you don't believe me, believe Marx and the Marxists, because those are the two institutions that they always try to attack one way or another.
Yeah, but you know, the family, so the insurance policy for the parents, when there were no social securities in the state social securities, were their children and a good education in the right direction. And now the ideology is trying to attack the family and even, you know, the education of these children. Why do you think people are so vulnerable and even eager for the socialist ideas?
Well, they sound good, you know, the key message, you know, from each according to his from his ability and to each according to his needs, you know. But so I will be able to do nothing, you know, and enjoy just because I'm a human person. I studied, and Paferi published a book that I wrote, explaining what some saints and fathers of the church and great theologians said about this. They basically explained what happened when you actually live that way in society now, with our fallen nature. The good people, you know, from his ability, they put more on the common storehouse or warehouse, and they will take less. The bad people, the miser, the greedy, will put very little and take more.
Yes.
And what happens in that society? The worst get into the top. And you saw it here in communism.
Yeah, it's a natural mechanism.
So basically, again, there's a lot of room, and charity is very much needed. You know, what you do in non-profit organizations, in Pafere or at Acton Institute, we don't search for profit. You know, we are trying to give what we think is a treasure, the treasure of freedom, the treasure of rational thought, the treasure of the individual and the human person, each unique and unrepeatable. You know, that is a treasure, and we give it to the world. But apart from that, you know, what developed, you know, the private property and contract law that decide, how I ended up as owner of this coat, and euros of your tie. That God didn't decide that. Yeah. So that's why, and I was concerned with Pope Francis.
Yes, because these elites should teach the people, the common people, that socialist ideology is bad thing. It always turned to the economical, disaster. So always. And so we have to draw some conclusions from our mistakes we did. And these mistakes repeated in Russia, in Venezuela, in Poland, everywhere. But we are still repeating it.
And we have to continue to teach the truth. The first two big social encyclicals, Rerum Novarum by Leo XIII, and 40 years later, Quadragesimo Anno by Pius XI, they were very clear that you cannot be a socialist and true Christian and vice versa. That there are contradictions in terms. And not because they just did not love the human being, just the opposite. But Pope Francis used the word in the Fratelli Tutti, another encyclical, saying that private property is a secondary right. But that doesn't mean it's not important. What it means that God doesn't say that tie, God decided that tie is yours and this suit is mine. Mm-hmm. It basically means that, but but doesn't mean we do not have to respect, because all the explanations of why private property is essential that the Catholic Church has in its catechism and in most of the encyclicals remain. No? Yeah,
but our perception of Pope Francis encyclica is that he's just in opposition to Rerum Novarum and other encyclicas you mentioned. What is the origin? What is the source of this strange behavior of Pope Francis?
Well, again, I lived 30 years in Argentina, and again, I have friends who are bishops, and I followed his career. Argentina was one of the grounds where the communists tried to take over the church with something called liberation theology. It was a Marxist interpretation of theology. Bergoglio, when he was head of the Jesuits, he did not like the Marxist interpretation, but yes, a populist interpretation, a little bit of theology. But the fact that he was not a Marxist made the Jesuits, that were very left-wing at the time, send him away from the capital. But Pope Francis lived in the system of a very, in the United States we use the word crony capitalism. Mm-hmm. It's the owners of private property getting privilege from the state. So you have to be careful, because private property gets a bad name when the owners of private property seeks privilege from the states. And this can be local and international. Pope Francis did not get a good experience with his father, was an accountant. Mm-hmm. And so he
should know a little bit of economy.
No, because an accountant is almost like a lawyer. When in a certain period you have to work so hard and you don't see the family. So he says, I don't like accounting. And there are other true stories. He never understood the entrepreneurial spirit. One of his brothers became a successful car part businessman, and then he bought a nice apartment in the best part of town, and the Pope told him, I'm never going to visit you in that house, and he never did. But again, let's be clear, there are many guilty parties that gave a bad name to capitalism. That's why I speak of free economy. There are three stars of the world multinationals: IBM, the American; Siemens, German; Skanska, Scandinavia, all countries with rule of law. While Pope Francis, Bergoglio, was in Buenos Aires, these three companies were caught paying enormous bribes to get contracts to corrupt governments. All confessed. All caught. So he has that view, and has never, I think, studied the economy of the Austrian school or the Chicago school. I believe that the insights of the social market economics, which tried to create a framework that would moderate what they thought there were some excesses of the free market, that is the most that Pope Francis might ever learn. But again, we believe, I'm a Roman Catholic and respect his teaching and in religion. When he speaks about economics, I try to approach it with love, but I don't have to agree with the statement that the Pope makes on climate change or air conditioning, on things like that, or on money. I think I know more, about monetary economics than the Pope.
Do you have such ability to phone him or to contact him and start teaching him in free economics?
Well, you see, at Acton we were privileged with John Paul II, and this is a true story. We started Acton, in 1990, and we had an agenda. And after some months, they told us that Pope John Paul II is going to release an encyclica on the economy, and it was going to be bad. When we read the encyclica, and especially point 42, where he clarifies some of the things we are speaking, internally, it gives me goosebumps, I don't know how to say in Polish. We said, our work is done. Yeah. Because we thought that was going to take us 25 years or more to reach that. And then, so we started making conferences, even in the Vatican. We did 2 or 3 conferences at Acton, and one of them, led to publications, about globalizations, about capitalism. So we had a very good working relationships. And then came, after Pope John Paul came, this other intellectual giant, Pope Benedict. So many of us so we kept working with bishops, and we continued to work with bishops, with friends in the Vatican. But now the Holy Spirit called a pastor, very different than the charismatic, saintly St. John Paul or the intellectual giant Benedict Ratzinger. And so what has happened is that many people also who do not understand economics, part of the internal bureaucracies of the church, are trying almost to be revengeful against those who were promoting a more, I think, proper view of the economy. So now there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of freedom to speak internally, in the Vaticans, in the circles. But there's a lot of confusion in matters of doctrine, in matters of attitudes towards the world. But again, as a Roman Catholic, I pray each day for the Pope, and I try to understand better economics and express my economics views as better as I can.
You, of course, praying is very important, but I think you have to do something to get his phone number and phone him directly.
No. So, an Argentine will not be the best. You have to work through his friends and through the people that he admires and listens.
So we are here in Warsaw, and you are the member of the conference devoted to Intermarium project, and there is also a concept to create some kind of commonwealth of Eastern countries of Eastern Europe. And if this project is going on, what kind of foundations do you think it should be based on? I mean, what should be written in the constitution of Intermarium Commonwealth?
Well, there are 3 aspects, the political, the economic, and the cultural. I studied at the Pontifical Catholic University of Argentina, and a good professor, was from Harvard, senior, asked me to teach with him and allowed me to teach Austrian economics, and the economics of integration was key. So from the economic point of view, you want that when there is a unit, whatever you maximize the freedom internally, respecting the character of each country, and that the barriers that you put to the outside world, will not make you less free and less productive. Remember, I think I see private property and trade as the way that God made us all collaborate, the principle of social cooperation, which is, I think, is another nice word for the free economy. I studied under a disciple of Ludwig von Misesa. His name is Hans Senholz, who was teaching at the university where I'm now director. His doctoral dissertation under von Mises was called "How Can Europe Survive?" Mm-hmm. And basically, it is based on for all of Europe, but on the principles of free enterprise, of private property, and sound money. And also, when he speaks about defense, he basically says, you cannot be blind at the enemies of the free society. And he said something that I'm still studying. He says, the weaker we are in the propaganda war, like with China, the more we have to prepare our defenses, in working security and intelligence. Von Mises basically also has written on basically Central Eastern Europe. Remember, he was in Austria. And again, he also recommended, what we would call today more like a federalist, a union based on federalism, and use the word in the Catholic doctrines of principle of subsidiarity, where I see it at play today in the United States. Mm-hmm. Today or before, the previous president did not want to centralize all responses to the virus. Today is exactly the opposite. They want to centralize everything. But we have governors, like in Florida and Texas, that allow us to work more freely. So all big conferences, instead of canceling and closing the economy, we move to the freer states. We have seen a secular movement also from the more statist, interventionist states of the United States towards the South, where we have more freedom. And I think that is very healthy. But again, the basic principle, I would do it similar to the United States Constitution, which is very short, mm-hmm. and has 3 basic principles. Yep. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the pursuit of happiness, the founding fathers were very fond of private property. I say that it's pursuit of happiness with what you own, with your private property, because pursuing happiness with the property of others is the method of communism and fascism, and those are the methods that kill more than 100 million people in the world. So those are the three basic principles. And then again, to achieve them, you need some cultural consensus, because the rule of law doesn't come out of thin air. You need a consensus society that would make those laws be respected. Mm-hmm. I love immigration, and I am an immigrant. My relatives immigrated from all parts of Europe to Argentina, but we all did it legally, respecting the laws of the country. And so I think again, those are the basic principles. That
Can you repeat? Life,
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness with your own.
Okay.
And so you could say life is life, liberty, and private property.
Yeah,
because that's it.
I think that the derivatives of these 3 basic principles are federalism, subsidiarity, and free economy.
Yeah, they all go hand in hand. And again, the basic unit of society, and in this meeting that we are today, Václav Klaus has been repeating this since the turn of the century, that the family is the basic unit of society. And I believe, again, we all have different views. It's very hard to be president, but Václav Klaus, I think, was canceled in the libertarian circles when he did not kneel to the politically correct gender culture, mm-hmm. when he opposed this environmental imperialism. I love nature, but the private property is the best way to protect nature in the long run. So basically, yes, those are the basic principles.
Okay, thank you very much for this.
Thank you, and thank you, Pafere, for the wonderful work you do here in Poland.